If you look at slide 14, high yield default rates, it's important to think about, but the better question is, what do you expect for default rates going forward? And is that priced into the market? But the important takeaway here is to understand, first of all, that defaults lag spreads in the market. You clearly have seen that in prior cycles, where in 2008, the spreads widened or hit bottom late that year, but the defaults actually did not peak until almost 10 months later. And you've experienced a similar situation here today. But the second point is, in a normal business environment, you do experience defaults. The market does. There were defaults in 2019, and there were defaults pre-COVID, despite the economy continuing to expand and having record low unemployment. So the goal of an active manager is to avoid those defaults in the marketplace. And you can see year to date, there has been an increase in defaults, and those have been concentrated in industries arguably that were either unprofitable or broken businesses pre-COVID that the market will not finance today. And so the goal is to identify those securities that have access either to government programs or are able to finance into the market, because a business defaults because either it's a broken business because of structural implications or competition, new challenges post-COVID, or a company is highly leveraged. But for companies that it's simply a short-term liquidity issue, that has been solved because of the actions taken by the federal government and the response by the Federal Reserve.
And I think it's important for investors to know that a lot of these bankruptcies has already happened. We've seen a 26, on this slide 15, a 26% year-over-year spike in defaults has already happened. And liquidity and programs are in place for the federal government to try to prevent systemically important businesses from defaulting in the future. So I do think that it's important to realize that this happened already. It's in the past, and it's largely been priced into the market.
Yeah, so that is, to Jim's point on slide 16, of the market pricing of high yield credit, where you could argue that defaults in the market have already occurred.
And for the defaults that may be late on their payment or in arrears, there's already 3.5% of the high yield market that's trading below 50 cents on the dollar, severely distressed. So if you add those two numbers up and assume that 10% of the high yield market has either already defaulted or is trading at a significantly distressed level, we would argue that the peak default rates of 2002 and 2009 have largely been priced in. And the opportunity to invest while spreads are wider because there's a significant fear of future defaults is extremely attractive. And that's one of the reasons that when you think back to 2002 or 2009, you think back to those periods at a time when there is great uncertainty is when you can collect more spread, despite the fact that failed businesses have already defaulted during those times, and they are known by the marketplace. They are unable to get new financing.
投资一定有风险，基金投资有赚有赔，申购前应详阅公开说明书。